Good evening. My name is Edgar Casasola. I'm going to give you this informative speech on the basics that you need in order to brew beer and the basic timeline as well. Purpose is to introduce my audience to the ingredients needed to brew beer and the basic timeline needed. So, why would you want to know, or is beer making legal? Well, in 1979, President Jimmy Carter passed a bill into law that allowed for Americans to brew 100 gallons of beer or wine per year for every adult that lives in your home for personal use. So that means myself and my wife combined, regardless if my wife drinks 100 gallons of beer or not per year, I can brew 200 gallons for personal use. Do not try to sell it, you will go to jail unless you have a license. So how many times have we as Americans sat back and enjoyed a nice cold one on a hot day, or been watching the game and just sitting back just enjoying time with friends? Well, have you ever sat back and thought of what was in that beer? What were you really drinking? Where it came from? What it is that involved making that beer? So what I'm here to tell you is to give you a little bit of that background. So what makes me able to tell you this? Well, for the last few years, I've been brewing the beer that I drink. I enjoy it. I sit back on occasion and go and purchase other craft beers just so I can sample and taste to see the things that I may want to do different. So in this speech, I'm going to inform you on the basics of beer. So let's start out with the basic ingredients needed to brew. First step is to gather the material. What kind of material do you need? Well, you need the basics of barley, hops, and yeast. Where can I find this? The internet is my best resource. Sometimes you can't find the fermentation stores or those specialty stores where you are, but you can always find it on the internet. Amazon, northernbrewer.com, or any other specialty website that caters to home brewers. This will provide any ingredients that you may need. Those basic ingredients again are hops, barley, and yeast. Barley is what aids in the coloring and some of those subtle undertone of flavors that you need for your beer. Hops. Hops are to beer what grapes are to wine. They're that little thing that adds to the bitterness of it. It aids in the citrusy flavors, some of the different undertones that you may be looking for within a beer. Finally, yeast. Yeast is that magic maker. Yeast is where the alcohol comes from. You don't just add yeast to water and get alcohol, though. What happens is that barley emits fermentable sugars when you're in the brewing process. And those fermentable sugars get broken down by the yeast in order to create alcohol. It converts over to alcohol. So once the beer is brewed, how long does it take to ferment? More importantly, when can you drink the beer? So after brewing, the most important part is waiting for fermentation. Fermentation takes place anywhere from 1 week to 14 days, or 2 weeks, 1 to 2 weeks after you complete brewing. Brewing only takes about 3 to 4 hours at the most. So some beers may take longer because you may want to get distinct flavors from it. You may add other things to it in order to get something more from it. Or the beer itself, in order to mature, may need longer time in order to ferment. So once fermentation is complete, kegging or bottling may be necessary. After kegging or bottling, you can expect to enjoy the beer within 72 to 96 hours. So about 3 to 4 days after you bottled it. So now that we have discussed the basic understanding of ingredients and basic timeline, let's review what we have gone over. We discussed where you could find ingredients for making beer, the internet, that's the best and most reasonable source, the basic ingredients needed to make beer, again, barley, hops, and yeast, and the generalized timeline for making beer, a couple of weeks maybe, depending on the type of beer that you're looking for. So most Americans enjoy beer, but they still do not realize what the basics that go into creating the beer. Finally, the next time you sit back and enjoy a nice cool one, think about the craftsmanship involved in brewing the beer but don't think too hard. Sit back, relax, enjoy. And remember, cheers.